Hey, and welcome to the Week Desires podcast. I'm your host, Chris Nicholas. I'll keep the intro short. I got some more album reviews and a good interview with my friend of mine. I hope you enjoy listening to what we have to say. All right, so we're back again with album reviews here. Still going into the January, February timeline. I want to keep them all kind of recent here. So, Scott, what do you got for this this segment for today?
So this time around, I got us some pop punk goodness in the form of Neck Deep's self-titled record that came out in January. Um, it is their long-awaited follow-up to their last record that came out in 2020. Um, that record received quite a tepid response from fans, and I never got that. I thought that record was awesome. It was one of my favorite records of 2020. Um, but alas, I was in the minority. But it seems like their follow up, their self titled that came out this year, has been received much better. Um, and I love it just the same. It's a much more straightforward of a pop punk record than their last record was. And if nothing else, it's a reminder that they are very good at this. It's what put them on the map in the first place. Was just writing really catchy and fun pop punk tunes, and they're just they just cranked out 10 songs of just nothing but bangers. Just there's not a single skip on this record. Every record it has its own quirks and aspects of it that are catchy in its own right. Yeah, really big fan of this record, and it's consistently been interesting to me to see how much farther Ben Barlow, the vocalist's range gets on each record. It seems like each record he can hit like a couple notes higher. And it's like, what are you doing, buddy? Like what workouts are you doing? But yeah, so Neck Deep self-titled record, just absolute delightful time. It's a quickie in and out, 10 songs, probably around half an hour. But like I said, each song is just really awesome in their own rights, and yeah, highly recommend it.
Nice. Cool. Well, my recommendation is from a band called Galleons, which you actually turned me on to, Scott. I was wanting some just new bands to listen to, and you said this would be up my alley, and it definitely was. It's in that genre, some genre of swancore, so like Dance Gavin Dance, Idola, Royal Coda, Hailson, all that kind of stuff. And it's not a quickie. It's 15 songs and almost an hour long. But after I was kind of tired of Dance Gavin Dance after like the allegations and all that, it felt like I don't really,
It's icky.
yeah. So this was like, okay, well then this because this guy, I don't know any other names of the band, but the vocalist, it kind of reminds me a bit of the earlier stuff from Dance Company. It's all like very still post-hardcore, swancore, um, but using a little bit more like electronics in here. It's got like a good bit of not even just like hardcore, but like all these other little different elements that really add to like the layering and all that. Just like pretty good. Some it has like pretty jumpy structure in between, like in the songs, like tempo changes and whatnot, but still very like catchy as in terms of like the melody and very much lyrically thematic about like Dance esque about like love and heartbreak and stuff like that. And so they got the clean vocals, harsh vocalist. It's all just like it all I think it all just works. I mean they even have an Idola feature in it, which I thought was kind of funny. Like if you like any of those bands in that genre, like you're set on this. They even had like more of like a ballady song towards the end of the album, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, gonna recommend that. And yeah, go check him out
right now.
right now. All right, so this is the interview musician interview a friend segment of the podcast, and today I have my friend Jesse here. Uh, what all instruments do you play, if any, like singing included?
So, well, I guess I play, you could say I play piano or I'm a pianist in progress. So, and I also play the drums. Um, but I think that probably um, my most, the thing I'm most familiar and most comfortable with is actually singing. I think I would say that I've probably spent more hours combined singing than all instruments I've ever played in my life combined. I tried to learn how to play a lot of instruments growing up. First, it was the trumpet, then it was the guitar. Oh no, sorry, then it was the piano, then it was the guitar, and that's something that I really well. It sort of comes down from family too, because my grandfather was a band director. He directed a band for a high school in northern Michigan for I don't know how many decades, but he could play basically any instrument you could put in front of him. He was Italian, um, and so it feels like sometimes it skips a generation because my mom was also very musically talented. I guess you could say she could play the piano and sing and played the oboe in high school and so forth. So I felt it skipped a generation for me. Um, I never toned or honed in on any musical, I guess, skills, you could say. But I guess the easiest thing that I could do, and I for a long time, I guess I never really believed I could do it, was singing. So I started singing when I was 17 years old, and I started singing because of the rock band Muse. So I was a big Muse fan back in high school, and I knew every song. And that really is where I started to learn how to sing. And yeah, I think I've been doing it for the last 14 years.
Nice. So so just all those instruments. Do you what are you doing with music right now? Is it more just like a hobby, or are you trying to make it a career?
Well, actually, I've been a lot more active with music within the last 12 months, I think, than I have been in the last 15 years or so. I had just finished my first semi-professional recording sessions in Las Vegas a few weeks ago.
Oh,
I am in the process of recording an album right now, and it's been a long time coming. So that's I've got quite a few more sessions lined up. We recorded a lot of skeletons so that I could come home and sort of work on those and have something to come back with for our next session. It was a great experience. It was a lot of fun, and it felt real. You know, it didn't feel like you're sitting in your car, you're sitting in your bedroom, but you're actually working towards something that's going to, I guess, last. You know,
hmm, that's awesome. Yeah, going all the way to Los Angeles for that. Got stuff in the works.
is
What?
I know that you were picking up the guitar a lot. Do you have your own recording studio? Like, I mean, do you have like Ableton or Logic or anything like that, or do you have to source that out?
No, so the room that I'm in right now is kind of like my recording. I call it my office because it's where I work from. So I use Reaper
Yeah.
to record my music, and I have just like some demo stuff out on SoundCloud, and but I've been having a
Hmm.
lot of inspiration for stuff, so hoping that eventually just turns out and I'll likely just record it myself to see how far I can go with that and just work up those skills as well.
Do you
But
have any
that
full songs recorded?
not not at the moment, no. I have well,
Mm,
like I said, I have demos, so like yes, they're like full songs, but like it's not really anything I would like release on music platforms per se, like on Spotify, Apple Music, that kind of thing. I'll send you a link to that stuff later so you can
sure.
listen to it.
That would be
Um,
great. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What about the recording sessions? Did you like was that just like a new experience for you?
It was absolutely an experience. I've recorded before with my brother-in-law. My sister's husband is a he does it on the side as a hobby. You know, he uses I think he uses Ableton. Does mostly EDM. So the genres that I'm dabbling are very radically different from where he's at. Ironically, the other producer I found in Las Vegas is also an EDM producer.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I keep landing on the EDM guys, but they know what they're doing, and they see it's interesting because they love EDM, but you see like their passions for other genres come out. Like my producer in Vegas, really he told me, I love rock music. I think I love rock music more than any other genre, and you wouldn't think that because he makes EDM. So yeah, it's interesting because I don't feel like a lot of people will land in a lot of the genres that they love the most, but maybe they feel is popping,
Hmm.
and so it's good to see that because I know that you and I both share a passion for rock and roll, um, and it seems sort of to be a dying genre or maybe a progressing genre. It doesn't look anything like it used to. Um, but it's good to see that there's people still out there that are still passionate about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's dying as more of just kind of like evolving. A lot of metal bands I've seen have included or incorporated a lot of like electronics or just like synth stuff to their music to kind of keep it fresh because there's I feel like metalcore especially.
Well, yeah, dying. I would say yeah, dying was probably a little bit hyperbolic, but I would say probably it's very underground. It's not. It's not. It doesn't. It's not the face of society as we know it, like it was for a long stretch there. Because in the '70s you had, the rock and '60s and '70s you had the rock and roll, the most notorious bands, and then in the '80s, the metal really that was I would say that was the day that metal really took over. And and you could disagree with me, and since it's sort of become a more of an underground type of scene.
Yeah, more like there's always going to be pop music that is always just very popular, hence why it's called pop. Because that yeah, in the
Mhm.
90s you have that's the whole new metal stuff like that. It started
Mhm.
uh shying away from like guitar solos and things were just a little bit more simple. So you had that movement and then it kind of um then with metal chords like it's just kind of been like this stuff that's like not been as popular, but it's always like is there still a
Mhm.
niche for it? You know what I mean? Like you still have bands like
Yeah.
Slipknot or who or whatnot that will have like huge concerts, you know. It just depends on like
Yeah, like Metallica or something like that. They can
yeah.
draw a crowd. Whereas like something like so I'm actually going to my first concert of 2024 in Denver on the 7th of May, Asking Alexandria. And I'm
Oh
going to be
nice.
able to meet them actually. VIP. Yeah, I got a VIP ticket. It was actually very affordable. So,
There you go. Yeah, I know that was one of the bands that we kind of clicked with too, particularly
mhm.
the older stuff. I tried listening to the newer music and I just didn't click with me as much, you know.
I'm right there with you. I would say if they had evolved as a band into like, and they did mature more, but it wasn't as their music wasn't as deep. It's interesting because if you pay attention to their songwriting back in the or their earlier albums, it was actually a lot better than it is now. It feels very lazy. It just feels very like I don't think that. Well, I definitely know the frontman's soul is not in. It's just not in that music. And when your soul's not into the music that you're doing, you're not. You're just not going to put 110% into it.
Hmm.
And I think that's where they've really faltered. I mean, they've had a couple of good. I thought there was a track they came out with back in 2021 called "Alone Again," and if you listen to it, I mean, it's just the intro. The intro to me was it kind of ranks up there. It was up with like, some of like the most famous like types of intros. Like I'm trying to think of examples. I'm trying to think of that song by The Who. Or what's another example? U2's Where the Streets Have No Name. These really, really kind of long types of intros that are very yeah, they don't just jump straight into the music. It just they kind of give you sort of that taste of what's. And I'm actually doing that with one of the tracks on my album because I think it's really brilliant. I really think that's a yeah. It seems, and I'm going a little off track here. It seems that a lot of well, the radio friendly music, it's just it's all structured the same way. It's all like you have your chorus, you have your three verses, you have or maybe yeah, you have like the well in metal music what they would call the breakdown, sort of like the transition or like you're veering off from like the uh the melody, the established melody. But but yeah, like when they like I like when music is experimented with, right? And people um I guess I'm trying to figure out how to word it, but when people try to I don't know, just sit there, and maybe you do this on your guitar or on your piano and put together a melody, and it doesn't have to be repeated over and over and over and over again necessarily. But you can sort of evolve it throughout the song, to where a song doesn't have to sit at 3 minutes and 50 and 3.5 minutes,
Mhm.
maybe it's 6 minutes, maybe it's 8 minutes, maybe it's 12 minutes. But yeah, so I appreciate when so going back to where I came off of this, yeah, they haven't really put out a lot of good stuff um lately, but the reason I've ordered my ticket is because they just hopped on a new tour last year, which I actually bought a VIP ticket for one of their shows last year that I missed because I missed my train. Um, and the reason is because uh, they're going back to their roots. I think even reluctantly, but they're realizing that's what their fans want, and so they're performing with a lot more energy than they used to. So it feels about as close to the old thing as you're probably going to get. So,
Well, cool. Yeah, I'll be excited to hear how that goes.
you got any concerts planned for the year?
I've already been to a couple. I saw Ben Rector back in March, and then
Ben Rector.
yeah, Ben Rector, Drew Holcomb, and the Neighbors, like 2 weekends ago, and Chris
Okay.
Renzema. So just and it's all like because my wife's not really into metal, so any of these like
Mhm.
Americana or like singer-songwriter stuff, it's like stuff we both listen to and enjoy. And I've actually drawn a lot of inspiration recently from Drew Holcomb, so I'm excited to kind of
Mhm.
dive into that and write some stuff that isn't just metal or anything like rock, that sort of
Sure.
stuff. But yeah,
What would you say that your second or your runner-up go-to, or your other go-to or alternative go-to genre is if it's not rock or metal?
probably like folk, Americana, bluegrass, like somewhere in that, you know,
Okay.
some of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Are you able to pick a banjo?
yeah, I have. You can't see it right here, but it's
Hmm.
back there. I have a banjo that I toy with every now and then,
Yeah.
and like I'm not like great at, and I have a mandolin too. Like I've had like, a couple of different instruments that I'll
Wow.
pick up every now and then, but guitar is like the main instrument. I've been playing that for 16 years now. Yeah.
Wow.
Everything else has
Yeah. And
been
you're how
like
old now?
I'm 30.
Okay. I know you were close to my age.
Yeah, I can't
No.
remember where we stood in
Yeah.
that.
We're getting up there. Did you feel like when you hit 30 that like something happened, like you took like a turn? I guess maybe since you got married, it's sort of like a milestone in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, I got married before I turned 30, but Yeah, that I think that was more the bigger milestone than turning 30 itself. But it was just great. Like
Yeah,
about the whole day was just spent with her, which is nice. And then we hang out with her family a lot. So
that's great. Well, I'm glad you're happy. I'm glad that yeah, it gets tough getting older and I don't know. Yeah, it seems like even with the music, you love the music, but human beings were wired to be with one another,
yeah, like it's the new stuff I'm writing too is maybe want to like write with maybe write with other people, or like I've been playing a lot of guitar at my church, and all the other worship team members are around my age. So just having those people that I can play with and just connect with has been really great.
That's great. Yeah. And were you ever in a band? You must have. I think you probably told me before.
No, not really. I've a lot of stuff I've written just by myself. I've tried, like in high school and college to do that, but it never really worked out. So maybe someday,
Mhm.
but I'm not. I'm
Oh, you
not.
know what? Oh, yeah. I was gonna say. I remember our connection. We both knew a Nathaniel Steelman. That was it.
Oh, okay. Oh gosh, yeah. The Worshipper, I think it was his band. Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew him through, oddly enough, playing Super Smash Brothers back in um like 2017 or something like that. And then he knew a guy I went to high school with whose name is also Chris, because he was their bassist at the time, is now doing his solo stuff called I and the Lad.
Trying to think. So we were on the topic of how rock. We kind of went off on a rabbit trail, and it was my fault. We were talking about how rock music is has evolved as a genre, and it's not what it was. What do you feel like I'm being the interviewer?
Yeah, I
I'm
was
good
about
at
to
asking
say.
questions too. What do you feel is is maybe, I guess, on the mainstream scale, let's just say mainstream, what is probably the most ambitious musical artist? And we don't even have to like narrow it into rock and roll, but in terms of like, because the music just really seems very like it needs a revival, like on the mainstream scale. Do you have any artists that you feel are taking it places that are sort of next level, or
That's a good question. I can't really think of any off the top of my head. I just know that there's some medical bands, like I said, that include some electronic stuff. Like if you listen to
Mhm.
Silent Planet's last album, it's that, and like I think there's some other bands that are including more pop. Like Wage War sounds a lot more
yeah,
poppy than they did when they first started out, to a lot of people's dismay. But I mean,
maybe some disgust.
yeah, it's like and I get it to some degree, but that doesn't make me not want to listen to them, you know. So like there's bands, I feel like a lot of those medical bands are shying away from the typical just like open string, just chugging whatever, into being either more of like
Mhm.
a octane core or like radio rock, whatever, or they just hone in. I don't know. It's like you see bands like Fit for a King go more into like
Mhm.
having those courses and stuff like that. And then Era, I don't know if you heard of a band called Era, ERRA. Their latest
I
album
don't think
has
so. No.
some like synthy parts in it too. I've seen them a couple times live, and yeah,
Okay.
just and like even bands like Spirit Box are really good about like sound design in their songs too.
Yeah. I was in Scotland last year for a Muse concert. It was my first Muse concert in 13 years, and I was standing next to this Danish couple, and they were telling me about Spirit Box because we were talking metal bands, and they weren't the only ones, but I think they were the first ones. But everybody's been telling me you need to listen to Spirit Box.
Yeah, like bands like Spirit Box and Error are the reasons why I even got a 7 string, because that it's for that extended range to be able to play music like that, and that's been
Hmm.
fun and tough because their riffs are not easy most of the time. So yeah, the guitarist for
Hmm.
Spirit Box has been really influential in like how I want to learn to play guitar too. And like if you listen to their latest EP, you there's some like interesting sounds in that as well. And I even was
Hmm.
I don't know if you saw from Facebook or Instagram, but he had a riff contest, and like the winner won one of his Jackson guitars that looked really sick.
Oh, it rings a bell. I think I might have seen something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I entered that contest, and they had like top like three winners. So first place got the guitar, and then second place and third place got like some other goodies and stuff like that. I didn't win, but I was pretty happy with what I came up with. Because they basically just give you a drum track and you record with whatever you choose to. Because there was like three different options, and the point was to kind of like make a riff, and then you can add like just layer it up, and it was really good to have that kind of restriction. And because I feel like having those limits just creates like or just breeds that creativity. So yeah, I would definitely recommend listening to those bands. I think Spirit Box has a good range of like
Hmm.
just like
Yeah.
dumb heavy and like actually kind of catchy songs. So
Yeah. And I've noticed you sort of rate guitarists because guitar is your instrument. That's your musical channel, if you will.
yeah.
And that's the kind of how I do. That's the way I am with vocalists is you just have an ear tuned for, I guess, what you know the most, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And yeah, that's really so like, well, who would you say you consider to be the greatest guitarist?
Ooh, I'm not even sure because like I could say someone like John Petrucci, but I don't really ever listen to Dream Theater. So I think he's, and I'm not like not
Right?
one to listen to like even though I am a guitarist primarily, like I do sing, I don't really listen to a
Okay.
lot of like shred guitar. I'd rather just listen to like songs. So like I rather just listen to bands like
Hmm.
Beartooth that have a really formulaic way of songwriting and just like enjoy that, from that
Hmm.
perspective. Versus when I was learning guitar, when I started learning it, I was focused on like just trying to get better. And now I'm like, well, I want to get better, but also want to make sure that am good enough in my instrument to like write songs and just like have that. Cause like you can be a good guitar, but you can also be bad at writing songs too. Like people just kind of like play around and not really do anything
That's
with it.
true. Yeah, and see, that's sort of like it's rare to find like all those things meshed into one individual, because I look at a lot of like beautiful singers, and singers who have these amazing ranges and amazing voices and amazing, a lot of them are in pop music and mainstream. Like I would look at somebody like Lady Gaga, say. It's like amazing voice, or Adele, amazing voice. It's just like it feels like it's being pissed away. Just seems cheap. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I see just a lot of talent being squandered. I guess what I'm trying to say is you might have a wonderful singer like Rihanna, but she's not a good songwriter. And a matter of fact, I don't think she's a songwriter at all because I think she buys a lot of the songs she makes. But it's just like true songwriting, I think is something that is in dire need, I think, in the musical world.
Yeah, especially a lot of with any sort of pop music, there's a lot of producers that will write the songs and then find someone to sing it for them. So like Kelly Clarkson or Rihanna or whoever,
Exactly.
uh I'm not really the songwriters, they're just kind of performers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel that. And I feel like there's some singers that are better at one genre. So it's versus if they try to go somewhere else, it may not work
True.
out.
No, that's a good point too. Quintessential like singer songwriter for me who's good at both and is probably one of the best at both for me is Bono. I really pay attention to songwriting. I would say like the two, it's Bono and Lana Del Rey. I think like in terms of mainstream, I think they're like some of the best voices and some of the best songwriters, some particularly songwriters. I like it when music is deep and meaningful, and This is probably sort of like a cliche, but it's like music used to be philosophical in a way, and deep, and asked questions and dealt with real issues, not like and it just seems like it's all music has become feel good. You know what I mean? It's just
Mm.
like, I guess on the mainstream, I'm really thinking on the mainstream scale, and you're more and we both have a love for metalcore because we grew up on metalcore, and I love metalcore. But when I think about mainstream music and like the vast amount of music that reaches the vast amount of people, the quality is faltering. Like, not the quality in, I kind of think about it like in terms of film. Like, it's like the same way. It's like film has become like that too. It's become cluttered with like explosions and great CGI and great, effects, but it lacks in story, it lacks in character, and that's the real heart of it. And I think the same things happen to music. It's like it's very well produced. The voices might be really, really good, but it lacks in heart and soul.
I got one last question for you. You had mentioned the album that you're working
Sure.
on. Kind of two questions. So like any ETA of
Sure.
like when that's being released, and if you have anything else, like anything you want to shout out, covers or anything else that you have released that you want to shout out.
Yeah. So if you want to put a link to it in your YouTube upload, when you upload, if you do plan to upload this, you can put a link to in the description box to I did a cover of a song by U2 when I was in the recording booth. It took about like less than an hour or so. Grade C vocals, not the best ones that I could have done. So a lot of the things that I have right now are very rough draft. But in regard to the album, so the ETA on the album is probably March of next year. So it's going to be a while. I would say that the album is probably about anywhere between 40 and 50% complete. So there's still a ways to go in terms of like adding on to what I do. But it's going to be a 15-track album. It's called The Escapist. I'm going by a different stage name, so I'm not using my real name for my musical work. So the album, I guess, thematically speaking, it probably has it's a lot to do with personal anguish, pain, crisis of faith, existential crises, love, fear, issues with upbringing. I mean, there's a range of it's and I've described the album to a lot of people as like I do want to record a follow up, and I almost feel like I do need to record a follow up album to this album because it may come off as so depressing that it needs a smoother landing, I guess, or maybe my musical career or whatever you would want to call it. So it definitely would need a feel, or it would definitely need a follow up. But I've told people that I'm recording this album for me. This album isn't particularly for anybody. If anybody can relate, that's great. And I do want to share music with people because, particularly this album, I want, if anybody can relate to anything that is going to be part of this album, I would say the theme is pain. It's probably pain, and I would want the next album's theme to be something more upbeat. But it's kind of it's more of a darker on a darker scale, and genre wise, it's kind of lies somewhere between rock and roll and soul. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. But the reason I want to release it in March of next year is because I'm planning on once it's out. Well, my plan is to get into the Las Vegas music scene. So, which is why I'm recording in Vegas right now, because I'm not currently living in Vegas. I consider myself still a Vegas artist if I'm recording there. So that when the album's out and if I move there next year, I can sort of enter the scene as a Vegas artist and probably record a lot, or I'm sorry, perform a lot in areas like Phoenix or a lot of California cities, or because I mean it's very close in proximity to California, and then you got Pacific Northwest and the music scene on the West Coast. It's Vegas, I would say, is sort of at the center of it. It's not really a music city; it's an entertainment city. But if you're thinking music city on the West Coast, you're probably thinking L.A. or Portland, and East Coast, you're thinking probably New York City and Nashville, if you want to consider that East Coast. But you know, Nashville being the epicenter of all musical, apparently it's the big that's where everything's bumping right now. But my focus right now is on the West Coast. So when the album releases, I would like to. I hesitate to call it a tour because it's not really that official. But yeah, planning different shows, getting involved with different people. That's the best way to do it. As I've been told, is to meet people. Because you can record, and I'm sure you know this is as you're a musician as well, and you've recorded, and I'm sure you've released. You said you've released on SoundCloud. Like you can put out a banger, and nobody will listen to it unless you. I mean, like the best way to get people to listen to your music is to perform, because they're already there and they're already wanting to listen to something. It's easier to do that than to send somebody a link to my YouTube. Hey, check out my song. Probably not going to happen. You know what I mean? So performing, I think, is if I want my music to grow and to reach an audience, you have to put yourself out there.
For sure. And what's the artist name that you're going under? I don't think I said what it was.
The acronym. Well, it's TGADS. It's been my musical stage name. Well, if you'd like to say that, I haven't really been on stage as a under the guise, but I that's a long story in and of itself. I think it was just I sounded really cool. You know, it was sort of a cool name I came up with, and I'm really bad at picking names. I sort of put, I guess you could say, the alter ego to bed, and I took a lot of years off from music. So when we met, I wasn't really, I guess you could say, musically inspired. So I really picked up the pen again last year and really got back into it. And so when I did that, I was like, well, what should I, what, you know, what am I going to go as? And so I just kept the same name just because I really don't feel like changing it. So it's spelled TGADS and it's all caps is how I've designed the name. And it kind of rolls off the tongue. It's my email address too. So, and you know, when people are trying to repeat your email address on the phone, nobody's ever mispronounced it. So I'm just like, well, if somebody sees it, they're never going to mispronounce it. So
cool. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely add that into the YouTube description and all that. But yeah, thanks,
cool.
Jesse,
Yeah.
for stopping by and
Yeah, it
getting
was
to
good
chat a little
catching
bit.
up with you, man. It was really good seeing you too. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
And I've been following you on social media, and you just have seen you a lot of things happening in your life. It seems like you're you're really happy right now, and you're doing things. And yeah, just I'm really happy for you, man.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
Yep. Okay, man. Well, blessings. And if you ever need to talk, I'm a text message away.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, Chris.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
You too. Thanks for tuning in to the Weak Desires podcast. If you've enjoyed listening or watching on YouTube, consider supporting the show. I do this all in my free time. It would really help me keep this up. You can do so by clicking the link on the show notes or on the description of the YouTube video. It's not a requirement by any means, but it would really help me out a lot. Until then, I'll see you next time.